Welcome. Good to see everyone today. Thank you for joining me. It's nice when I can see faces of friends that I've had through work for quite some time. So if you could quickly just introduce yourselves, that would be wonderful. Carol, you want to start?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Carol Maurer. I am located in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I've been with the Getting Ahead program in Waukesha since the beginning. I was part of the steering committee that formed our work with Getting Ahead. And I'm also currently the Waukesha Council president. So I really have connections with all of our 24 conferences in Waukesha County.
Thank you. And Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Strasberg, and I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we have been doing Getting Ahead here in Albuquerque since 2013. And it has been an amazing program. We only have enough facilitators to do one program a year, but we know that we change the lives of those investigators every year.
Yes. And Jeannie.
Yeah, I'm Jeannie Harper, and I'm from Marinette, Wisconsin. And I started with St. Vincent de Paul Getting Ahead in fall of 2011. Our then president, Sheila Gilbert, invited me in. So she asked me to go to a meeting. And lo and behold, it was in Indianapolis, and it was Phil Duvall and Jody Farr. So that's how I got started.
We were talking about the fact that initially the first meeting that I remember talking about our collaboration together was in September of 2012.
Correct.
So it's been ongoing for quite some time, and I think growing. You know, as you continue to talk about it within your different meetings and different people contacting you. So happy to be working even at the national level with St. Vincent de Paul and being a part of what's happening in communities as you're reaching out to those under-resourced individuals on there. How about, I would like to just ask, so Carol, do you want to talk about really getting ahead in Waukesha, working in the community and how that's addressing some of the barriers? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. We really identified a path to community change early on in our work, and we began that by offering what we called at first taking a new look at poverty seminars, and it has since been revised to say bridging seminars. We've offered that seminar to over 500 people in the last 13 years in our county. And the whole object of this seminar is to help people have a better understanding of poverty in our community and the experience of those experiencing poverty, and also what barriers exist and what we can all do together to create change. So that was our first, our first effort into working with the community. We really felt we were building a common language, and we were sharing concepts that throughout our last 13 years, we come back to over and over again with our St. Vincent de Paul members. Those were some of the people who attended this bridging seminar, but also regular community people, and those working with agencies, those working within the library, so employees and members and community members. That was really the audience for these seminars. After we did that, we really we looked for another way that we could really inspire and support change in our community, because with our graduates, we also have a graduate program. So we stay with the graduates for a year after they have finished our workshop, and they've identified goals. But we know that there are barriers in the community to those achieving their goals. And so we decided that we needed to really take a closer look at what barriers were in our community. So we surveyed the community. We other social service agencies, our members, and so on, to say, hey, what are the greatest barriers in Waukesha County? And there were 4 of them that they identified: employment, housing, transportation, and mental health. So we thought, we really, the the image of the kitchen table sticks with us always. So we thought we would invite people to dinner. We would have people sit around a round table, a dining room table per se, and have conversation, just like you do at the dinner table. So we spent 3 months as a community digging into each of these barriers or topics. People would come to dinner. There would be 35 or 40 people at these meetings, Vincentians, community members, leaders, decision makers, and we would just sit around the table and talk. For instance, when we were looking into housing, we asked, well, what is working in Waukesha County for housing? And then people would have a conversation. We would note takers. And then another question, similar process, is, well, what is not working in Waukesha County? And we collected all of these individual voices and quotes and put them into a report, along with statistics that we thought might be surprising to people in the community.
Right.
Also, what could we do? It always came down after these three or four meetings where we gathered the same people around the same topic. It came down to, well, what can we do? What can we actually do about all of this? And remember, our objective was to inspire and support change. So at that point, we always thought we were not really going to be standing on the street corner with the placard. We were not going to be doing actual direct advocacy. We were going to support change and inspire change. So the reports, and we did the same process for all of those topics. The reports that we put together were sent out to over 700 people in the community, including decision makers. And we got very positive feedback, and we heard that pastors use them in their sermons, and the mayor of Waukesha referenced our report. So we thought, well, all right, somebody's hearing our community voice, and that's what we wanted to do there.
Wonderful.
Then the next thing that we did, though, was then COVID came, right? So we could no longer continue with a nice group of 35 or 40 people enjoying dinner. What we did, switched to Zoom, and we had for over a year a Zoom book club. And so it was a lunchtime. It was a brown bag lunch. You brought your own lunch. And we discussed the book Evicted for over a year by Matthew Desmond. Now, that book is set in Milwaukee, which is close to us. So as we were reading the book chapter by chapter, our group of about 15 people who came consistently to this lunchtime conversation, we said, how does this affect Waukesha County? What is it like in our county? And being so close to Milwaukee, there was a lot of overlap. So again, at the end of this went on for a year. It's a thick book, and we met once a month. So we did this for over a year. And at the end of that, we also said, well, what can we do? So we decided that it was really time for us to try to figure out if St. Vincent de Paul, along with other community partners, could really support some sort of change in our community that affects people's ability and the community's ability to thrive. So it coincided also with our St. Vincent de Paul strategic planning process. And as we completed that progress, one of our goals was to expand our ministry as a council, a St. Vincent de Paul council, expand our ministry and address barriers in our community with our members, our St. Vincent de Paul members, and others in the community. So it was right there setting up a collaboration or partnership in our strategic plan. So then we did some surveys of our members to see what they thought should be included in a strategic plan, and then narrowing down the focus. What barriers could we be addressing to people thriving in Waukesha County? And the surprise, the biggest barrier was the lack of affordable housing, the need for people to have any kind of shelter. So we again surveyed people, community members, community agencies, and our St. Vincent de Paul members, and added in people with lived experience, people who had difficulty finding a shelter in the middle of the night, or had been on waiting lists for housing for 5 years. So, and they contributed their stories to the conversation. So at this point, we have St. Vincent de Paul as a council has built in some money. Money is always important to our budgets for expanding our ministry, expanding ministry. So now we have some money, we have the ideas, something around housing. So our next step is to really narrow our focus into what exactly about housing is realistic and what can we do in Waukesha County. So I think, there's been a path there from the very beginning of trying to raise awareness of, oh, yes, there is poverty and need in Waukesha, all the way to what can we do together as a community.
Wonderful.
Don't,
Wow.
we don't know exactly what's going to happen next.
Sure.
We have 3 or 4 ideas, and our next step will be to pull together Vincentian members and key community people to, okay, what seems realistic? We'll take it to our board. They'll approve that. We'll begin to work.
Well, I look forward to hearing an update
Yes.
on what's going on. Thank you for sharing that. Your whole, just kind of the way things have progressed.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. So Jeannie, you're doing training as well. And
Yes.
I'm hoping you can share some great facilitator stories or getting ahead graduate stories.
Yes, so I can do that. So I told you that we started in 2011 when Sheila asked me to go to that workshop. And this is what Sheila said to me. Okay, Jean, this is the deal. You start in January, graduate them in June, and I want them speaking in a keynote for June of 2012. And because she wanted it out to the Vincentian, she wanted me to really, I was the one that was going to be leading that charge for the steering committee to go to the Vincentians. So in 2012, we went to Joliet, Illinois, and we presented there the keynote. And Susan did a great job, shared with them all where she was, how everything had ended up for her, and how getting ahead had given her the courage to go ahead and go back to her old job, which was real estate. And now that the abusive person was out of her life, she was going to be able to just go full force into sustainability and go back. She'd never been in the situation she had been in for the last year since she came to our community. So that started us off. She went back to California. She's still doing very well. We hear from her periodically, and she's back in real estate, and she got custody of their daughter. So she's just a very one of those grads that you're just so proud of. And she did an amazing job in Joliet. So just then she spoke to about 400 Vincentians at that time. Then in 2013, it was our fortunate, and Sheila said that's all God's plan. So Madison, Wisconsin was the site of the national meeting. So there we spoke to another 600, and Carla was able to be there. Carla had been a graduate of our first round. And then she had gotten trained by Phil Duvall and Sherry Benson and myself, trained to be a facilitator. So she was a graduate, she was a facilitator, and she did very, very well as well, was able to find herself a job where she felt appreciated and was paid at a way that would create sustainability. She was able to, we helped her find resources, get a new roof on her house, and she got everything all set to be able to go forward. So that was another one of ours. And so she spoke at the National St. Vincent de Paul. That was in 2013. Now, 2013 is when we started our National Steering Committee. So in 2014, two of our grads went and spoke at another region meeting, and they did another excellent job. So total, they spoke to about 900 to 1,000 Vincentians just in those first 2 years. And it was the presentations, as you well know, Lynn, much better done by the investigators, the
Right.
grads, the facilitators themselves. So Carla was our very first Getting Ahead grad who became a facilitator. Since then, we've got like 4 or 5 more that have done the same thing. So that's what promotes the program nationally as well as for us locally.
Thank you for sharing.
You
We
bet.
love it when we can highlight those graduates and tell stories, what's happening
Yes.
there. Good.
Yes.
And I know, I believe, Jeannie, you continue to do training of facilitators as well.
Oh, yes. So we still have our Getting Ahead facilitator training. Happens 3 times a year, in the spring, the summer, and the fall. And we have 20 to 30 people that are being trained, and some of them, Lynn, you'd love this. Some of them are just coming back to audit because they were trained last year, but this year they got their feet on the ground and they're starting their first round. And so they're just coming back to listen in and make sure that they've got everything covered for their 16 to 18 sessions.
Yeah.
So that, and nationally, that we've had people from Australia that came on our facilitator trainings. And then we started, I believe, was 2014, I believe, or 2015 is when we started our practitioner calls. So then every month we would have those who were facilitators, and many of them were, of course, investigators previously. And then in our own local community, we just said that the only way you could become a facilitator was you had to first go through Getting Ahead. And so all of our current facilitators all were investigators initially and went through as an investigator and then became a facilitator. We just made that a local thing. So our practitioner calls still continue and are very well received.
Good. And, I should say that you were trained. Phil Duvall has been a part of this. And
yes,
because of our agreement with St. Vincent de Paul at the national level is how you're able to provide this training. So thank you very much.
Correct.
Yeah. Linda, you are in New Mexico, but tell me again about how the part that you're playing as well.
Well, we have one program a year, and it is a program that we have been fortunate to partner with another faith-based organization. And what that has allowed us to do is to share the cost, but it also allows us to pull from other areas of the city for our investigators. And we know that they're out there, and it really is a collaboration that the Holy Spirit is guiding with us. With that faith-based organization, we share who pays for the meals, who pays for the supplies, the stipends that we pay our investigators. But one of the most exciting things for me, I think, is that they brought to the program with us when we have our meals. They are provided for us by one of the high school culinary arts programs.
Whoa.
And it is their way of showcasing their meals, which are really inexpensive, but it also pays them so that they can go and participate in their own fundraising.
Right.
They do their they go to their competitions. That's the word I want. The competitions where they then showcase their work. So this particular program last year won first place in the state for the culinary arts program. So we are now working with young students in high school who are knowing about our program. And this is at one of the high schools that probably would be considered Title I. So they have a lot of free and reduced lunch. So we can pull then from that cohort of people in that group. So we are working together in so many ways. One of the things also that we work with is the fact that when we are working with another faith-based organization, and because part of St. Vincent de Paul is the service and the friendship, what that allows us to do then is to make friends in other areas and to get to know each other and realize that we're all in this game together.
Right.
We are working together to as Carol has found out in Waukesha, that there are so many areas of assistance that we need, that we are now working with sharing programs. They have what they call the laundry program that we are looking at to share with our conference in St. Vincent de Paul. And, it's a win-win situation, no matter how you look at it. But we know we also then collaborated with United Way to help us with our financial literacy class at the end of Getting Ahead. So it is that collaboration that we have to work with all of the other organizations in our area, because this is how change is made. It's not just with one organization.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you, really, for talking again about how you're not just in your little silo or bubble, that it takes a village. It's taking many villages.
Yes.
And you're also working at this from the national level too.
I do have one really great story that I know that you like the stories.
I do.
Kiva has gone from being one of our investigators, Getting Ahead investigators. She has become a trained facilitator. And she now, during her time in Getting Ahead, she recognized that one of the biggest needs, we always did surveys. St. Joe's Conference did surveys of the people that we serve. We do them either at back to school time or at Christmas time. And one of the barriers that kept coming up as number one was daycare.
Yeah.
And so Kiva kind of went into that and was looking at all that and realized there were no babysitters for second or third shift, which is where a person could be paid a living wage. And so she began. Now, it took her 4 or 5 years to get this off the ground, and her fellow investigators helped her out. Of course, by that time, they were all graduates, and they continued to help her. And we're here to tell you that Kiva now is a member of our national Getting Ahead group. She just did, for the first time, she led Module 5. And so I know that you'd be very excited about that. So she now is part of our national committee, and that she did a great job on Module 5. And again, coming from that Getting Ahead investigator position into looking, just like Carol was talking about, looking at what are the barriers in my community. She saw that, and she is now state certified and has all the certifications. She has all the requirements and has been running successfully her program for second and third shift sitters for children.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you for sharing.
You bet.
Then I would like to share also about when we think about our Getting Ahead investigators. Me personally, I think of the anywhere from 20 to 40s, where they can they can change their lives at, especially, making better a living wage, etc. But a couple of years ago, we had two ladies in our program who were both in their low 70s. And of course, this is a program where they self-select their participation.
Sure.
And they became the best of friends. One of them had a son who was adopted. And she was now a widow. And that son was pushing her for constant financial support and emotional support. And it was taking a toll on her emotional situation. Right. And what she learned in the Getting Ahead program is that, it's okay to say no to your child. One of the hardest things that we do as parents is to say no to a child. But she was able to share with him that her emotional and financial support was as important as his was. And 2 years later, when I visited with her, it's evident that she's a much happier person, that emotionally she's in a better place. And her relationship with her son is even better now than it was then. But I think what's really important here is the fact that age there is no age that cannot participate.
I agree.
In Getting Ahead. And I think that's an important thing that we need to remember, because change can be made at any time in our lives. And Mary is a prime example of how important that was.
Thank you.
And Lynn, if I could add, I would also say that change can happen in any community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We in Waukesha found that there was a need for Getting Ahead in Spanish to be presented in Spanish.
Right.
We started a few years ago offering the workshop in Spanish. We've probably had 8 sessions, rounds, as you might call them, in Spanish. But so that was just really the beginning, because out of that group, out of the graduate group, 2 of them have become facilitators.
Great.
For the workshop itself. And then we thought, how else can we engage with and support our Latino community? And so we have a program, Latino Engagement, and the whole point of this program is to identify and support needs and things that have to be changed in the community. The group themselves, probably 15 to 20 Latino graduates, said, we need a resource guide for our community. We have new people coming to the community all the time. We need this to be in Spanish. And we just thought, and people told us, there are so many resource guides already. So we really thought about, we did think about putting this online. And when we do our second edition this year, we will look to have this be online so it can be updated. But the resource guide that this group of 15 Latino graduates put together is more like what I would say a yearbook in a sense. It carries through the theme of sharing our story, because each of these people on the team had a chance to share their story, what country they came from, what they found in Waukesha, etc. But another thing, though, is that they actually went to the agencies in our community and interviewed them, so that the information that came back into the guide, there was a personal connection there. So it is a guide. It is in English and Spanish, but it's so much more than a guide. They told the story of their experience in the Getting Ahead program as well. So then we thought, all right, well, what else can we do? What are the other needs? So we asked those women and 2 or 3 men, and they said, we'd like to have a place to come where we can practice our English and feel at home and things like that. So we developed a Latino engagement, a resource center, a pop-up resource center. Pop-up because, that's what we do. We're not there all the time. We have set hours within our own office where we have the resource center. And at that resource center, there are There are times for practicing English, learning computer technology, working on their individual. They're all graduates at this point, their plan, getting advice for that, helping one another. They have a book club in Spanish where they read books that are, which they choose, which are, have a financial bent to them. And we also have a speaker series. And that's been one of the very popular things because the last one was, how do I buy a house? So these are presented in Spanish to the group, and it's been very popular. Also, um, celebrating the culture of the
Right.
places that people come from and what they
Sure.
bring to the group. So around a holiday time, what their customs are, and they decorated the Christmas tree in the pop-up center with what I'm going to do to continue working on my financial stability. They made little ornaments and they put them on the tree. So it all really it serves so many purposes on so many levels. And we are so enriched by just really sitting down with this lovely group of people and learning from them as well. So
Yeah.
we then actually hired two of them as part-time leads because we only have one person who's bilingual, and that's a big burden. One, so they've had a 1 year stint as a lead in this program, developing, coordinating support, the pop-up resource center, and so on. Next year, we're going to actually hire a full-time person who is bilingual, and we hope that we will be able to, deepen our understanding of what people want and then being able to provide that.
Great.
That's another way of engaging, that we're engaging.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks to all of you.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for talking about how this has really grown over the years and how you just have taken it to heights that we would never have imagined.
Mhm.
So thanks for joining me today.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.